Okay, now you can go.
Now we can go. All right. So the first thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to start off by thanking everyone because literally um, uh, I'm not able to accomplish all of my dreams and all of my goals and visions and everything without the help of the interns. And so just a little bit about me. So I've been married for almost 18 years, so it'll be 18 years in July, and we have a son who's 16. He's about to turn 17 in June, so we didn't wait very long. And then we also have a daughter. So our daughter is 15, and then we have another daughter who is waiting for us on the other side of the veil, and we're excited to be able to raise Zion Grace in the millennium because then we don't have to worry about the kids making fun of her at school because her name is Zion Grace. So, and right now we're living in Houston, Texas, and so I'm about 10 houses down from my in-laws. So it's absolutely wonderful because my mother-in-law, I mean, she brings us the cookies. So as soon as the cookies come out of the oven, she actually drives them down. I don't even have to send the kids down. So that's really nice. And then, let's see. Just before this, we actually were living in central Utah in a tiny town called Loa. And then we ended up moving down here to the Houston area. Okay, so a little bit more. I graduated from BYU. Both my wife and I did in family science, and that's actually where I got started in this whole. I caught the vision of doing marriage education, family life education at BYU, and then I did graduate school at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, mainly because the professor that I was able to work with, his specialty was developing family life education programs and then also marketing them. And so spent 2 years there. Absolutely phenomenal experience. Actually started the first business while I was there because I started developing products to strengthen marriages and families when I was at BYU, and then continued to do it at the University of Tennessee. The business had actually grown to the point where I needed to work on it full time, but I did have one class that was left to take, and it was family stress. But so we ended up moving back to Utah. I got permission to take the family stress class at Utah State. Unfortunately, elder, and I can't even remember what his name was, but he was the professor. He got called into the 70, and so they canceled the class. And so I'm ABC, although my comprehensive exam, because I ended up finishing up the class. I ended up working for the federal government on President Bush's Healthy Marriage Initiative about 2 years after I moved to Utah. And so when we went back to DC to work on that, the Virginia Tech had a satellite campus, and I was able to take my family stress class there, but by the time that I finished it, University of Tennessee had changed the graduate requirements. So anyways, I almost have my master's, but I got the education, so I'm happy. My mom and my wife are disappointed, but I'm fine with it. Let's see what else. Okay, so next question was, why is the National Healthy Marriage Institute important to me? And for me, it's because literally the foundation of the family, the foundation of everything is the marital relationship. But if we can help couples to form and sustain healthy marriages, then it's like Cicero said thousands of years ago that the foundation of society is also marriages. And so very much I see the need. Obviously, on the day that people get married, their goal is not to have 2 years of marital bliss followed by a number of years of pure hell, followed by a divorce, followed by the rest of their life fighting over the kids, etc. So that's not the goal and dream of anyone. And so what I want to do is develop products and services to help people to be able to achieve their goals of forming and sustaining that lifelong marriage. And in our case, we understand it can also be an eternal marriage. And then, so what are the responsibilities as the intern of this company? Oh, and also a little bit more about me too is, so my main source of income actually came from the military, and so for out of the 18 years that I've been in this field, probably 14 of them I've been completely self-employed. I took a sabbatical from my business to work on President Bush's Healthy Marriage Initiative, because it's one of those where it's not very often that you get to sit down at the table and decide how $1.5 billion is going to be spent on strengthening marriages. And so I helped develop the initial one, and then went back to my business, and then that was great until the military went through their sequester, and then it dried up the income, at which point I ended up getting a part-time job with the Dibble Institute for Marriage Education, So I work for them for about 32 hours a week, and we develop, basically I do the exact same thing. I develop products and services, but it's more to teach healthy relationship skills to teens and to young adults. So it's great that I'm able to stay in the field, and it's great that we're able to have a job that keeps the house over our heads and the mortgage paid. But then with the rest of my time, it's that I get to spend it on developing these other products and services to strengthen the adult relationships. And so responsibilities as an intern. Basically, the responsibilities is just to put your oar in the water and start rowing. As far as we have a number of different projects that I'm working on, and need help on all of them. And so the biggest thing for me is if you're not super excited or passionate about whatever assignment that I've given you, tell me, because we have so many other things that you can work on. And I really want you to enjoy the internship. One of the best parts is the flexibility of it, and that flexibility also includes that, hey, you know what, Aaron, I'm just not really getting into this whole, I don't think it's a lot of fun to create dates, and so is there something else? And absolutely, I have plenty of other things for you to work on. So please let me know if you're not having a good time. The other things too to be aware of is on Monday, so this will be the third round of funding for the Healthy Marriage Grant. And so it's going to be about $52 million. A $52 million Healthy Marriage Grant is going to be released on Monday. We're actually in the process of applying for 2 of the grants. So one of them will be through the National Healthy Marriage Institute, and we're going to be focusing on the Las Vegas area. And then the other grant will be up in Maine, so in the Portland, Maine area. And that's the one that we're partnering with Marriage Alive International, which is a nonprofit. And I'm actually in the process of merging the National Healthy Marriage Institute with Marriage Alive International. And so Dave and Claudia Arp are getting ready to retire, and they selected me, and they said, hey, Aaron, we'd absolutely love to turn over what we've done with 10 great dates to you and to the interns, and have you guys go forth and do good things and keep the momentum going. So we're in the process of merging, and part of that will be applying for the grant. And so I'm going to need a lot of help with those, applying for both of those grants, as far as tracking down a lot of information in terms of stats, reaching out to school districts, to community partners. So there'll be a lot of emailing that's going to go on. It's going to be a pretty, for me, it's going to be incredibly intense 2 months, because they give you 60 days to respond. And so I'm going to be relying a lot on you guys to help out tracking down information. Now, with grants, there are no guarantees in life except for death, taxes, and conflict with your spouse. And so I've added the third one, as far as when I teach marriage education workshops, to help people to understand that, you know what, conflict happens, and you can learn how to resolve conflicts in a way that strengthens the relationship or damages it. But anyways, so back to the grants. The good news is, there's no guarantee that we'll get the grant, but if we do, then it's actually something that could turn into either part-time employment for you guys or full-time employment. Because one of the requirements of the grant is to basically do, so it's kind of like being a case manager. So you'll be assigned a number of couples that you'll be working with, and you'll actually help them to complete their marriage education, complete the parenting education component of it, and also complete the job training component of it. So that's something that would start in October for anybody who's interested, if we end up winning the grant. So just know that as you work on it, potentially you could be working on something that could lead to employment, if that's something that you're interested in. Okay, and then the other thing too that I should do is kind of give a 40,000 foot view of, so let's go up really high and take a look at kind of the overall vision of what we're trying to accomplish. And so the big picture vision is, when I was an undergrad, what I really, really wanted, especially after I learned how incredibly emotionally draining it is to be a marriage and family therapist, I learned I learned about family life education and marriage education. And what I really wanted was a full-time career where all all that I did was just teach marriage and family life education workshops. And unfortunately, there's very few career tracks that are out there. You can do it if you go into the military. You can also do it a little bit if you go into extension, which is the USDA has extension agents in all 50 states, and some of them are able to specialize in family life education. But for the most part, there's not an established career track. And so what I really want to do is develop something so that other undergraduates can graduate with their degree, and if they want to, they'll have a full-time job of just teaching marriage education. And so that's where what we're working on is ultimately going to lead to that with the date night, the date night blogs that we're creating. So we're starting in Houston, but ultimately we're creating a template that we'll be able to do in other cities, literally around the world. And the revenue driving model of it is actually going to be the 2-for-1 coupon cards, because what I've learned is that very few people are willing to pay for marriage education, not only in terms of their money, but also in terms of their time. So even when you offer it for free, it's very difficult to get people to show up to marriage education workshops. So a prime example is Stephen Covey. So Stephen Covey and his wife taught the marriage and family relations class in their ward. And you would think, it's Stephen Covey, for crying out loud. You would think that the room would be absolutely packed. The most that would show up to his class was 8 couples. That's all that he could get to come to his class. And the reason is because what David Mace, and David Mace is one of the kind of the godfather of the marriage education movement here in the United States, what he found out was that when it comes to people attending a workshop where they're going to be strengthening their marriage or working on their marriage, that there's kind of this stigma attached to it. And people are worried that if they show up to a workshop, then other people are going to think that they're having marital problems. When in the reality is that everybody has marital problems, everyone has marital problems, and all of us could benefit from learning these skills and insights and tools so that we can quickly get through the marital problems and be able to experience some of that joy and happiness. And so that's one of the problems that we're up against. The other problem that we're up against too is there's been some surveys that have been done chiefly out of the University of Chicago for the past 30-40 years where they ask people, how satisfied are you with your marital relationship? And on average, couples will say that on average 95% of couples will say, I'm either satisfied or very satisfied with my marital relationship. Well, when you have that high of a percentage of people who are satisfied with the state of their marital relationship, the chances of actually getting them to show up to one of your workshops is pretty slim, because it's like, hey, I'm good. And then in terms of the 5% who are unsatisfied, they're the ones who, after on average 7 years, will eventually go to a marriage and family therapist, at which point 7 years before they had just a sunburn, but by waiting 7 years, then they have melanoma cancer all over their body, and it's very difficult for the marriage and family therapist to try to save those marriages. And so, and then in terms of that whole 95% thing, people say that doesn't make any sense because the projected divorce rate is about 50%. And the reason why there's the 95% and the 5% is because if you ask 100 couples, 95 of them are going to say today that, yeah, we're very satisfied or satisfied with the marital relationship. You ask those exact same couples even a week from now, and some of them will slip into the 5% category of, hey, this is a living hell, I'm not enjoying it, no, I'm not satisfied with my marriage. And some of those people in the 5% slip back into the very satisfied or satisfied. And in fact, it's a little over 70% actually after 5 years. So 70%, a little over 70% of the couples who say, I'm not at all satisfied with my marriage, if they just stick it out after five years, they've slipped back into the category of we're satisfied or very satisfied. So 40,000 foot picture, that's what we're up against, is people don't want what we have to offer. And so, but what they do what they are willing to spend their money on is, if any of you guys have ever gone out on a Friday night to restaurants, you'll see people are sitting down and they're forking out up to $100 or $40, $50, $60 to go out to eat. And so people are still willing to spend money on things that bring pleasure, or they're also willing to spend money on things that help them to alleviate the pain. So they'll go to a marriage and family therapist because the pain level is so high, and they'll also go and do fun things like going out to eat. And so that's where the ARPs, back in the 80s, the ARPs started their 10 Great Dates program, and that's a unique thing that they offer is that they have combined marriage education with going out and having fun dates. So in essence, that's what we are creating with this website, is a resource for the people in Houston. What are we going to do tonight? Well, they can go to our website and they can get a whole bunch of ideas of what they can do tonight, a bunch of fun ideas, but the way that we're kicking it up a notch, so the whole concept of good, better, best. So it's good to do a dinner and a movie. It's better to go and do something that is a lot more interactive. And then the best is to go on one of the dates that we're coming up with, where they also learn some specific skills or insights or tools that they can use to help strengthen their marriage. And then the other thing that I wanted to do is, I saw this little quote on Deseret News. .com. So somebody did a bunch of, I think they're called memes or something, on Deseret News, and so I wanted to share it with you from President Kimball. Let's see. I had it pulled up, but I lost it, so hopefully I'll be able to, yeah, here it is. It's one of the last ones. I apologize to the people who are watching the recording. I should have double-checked to make sure that I had it up. Okay, so President Kimball said, "The mere performance of a ceremony does not bring happiness and successful marriage. This requires three things: forgetting of self, continued courting, and obedience to the Lord's commandments." So in essence, that's what you guys are going to be working on, is helping people to do the continued courting. Okay. Oh, and then a little bit more about how we're going to generate revenue so that we'll be able to pay you guys is, so the 2-for-1 coupon cards. The 2-for-1 coupon cards, most people are interested in saving money, and so we're setting up something where partnering with local businesses so that if somebody shows them the coupon card, then they get the 2-for-1 deal. And then with the money that we generate off of that, what we'll be doing is we'll be using most of it to provide a free date night for teachers, for firefighters, for police officers, for military, for other people who serve our community. And as part of that date night, it'll actually be a date night workshop. So they'll be able to go to a restaurant like the Olive Garden. We'll reserve a room. And so you'll have like 20 to 40 couples who will be in the room. Maybe not 40 because that's a large crowd. But around 20 couples that'll be in the room. And then you'll get paid $100 to teach a 15-minute short mini workshop on how they can strengthen their marriage. And then the rest of the time, they'll be able to enjoy a great meal. And so that'll be a part-time. Well, I mean, it could actually turn into full-time if somebody wanted to do one at lunch and then one at dinner. So anyways, that's an opportunity that hopefully will be growing out of this whole thing. Okay. Next one was, do you have any deadlines for any of our projects? So once again, best thing about this internship is the flexibility, but many hands make light work. So all of us kind of pushing on this snowball. The interns just before you guys have done a great job in terms of getting the website to where it's at. Right now it's kind of in beta mode. We're starting to do a soft launch with some of the churches. But very much, if you have any suggestions on how we can polish, how we can improve, then please send them my way, and all of us working on it will be able to put together a great template. Because remember, too, the big picture is this Houston website is going to be a template that we'll be able to do in other cities. What projects are under the umbrella? So talked a little bit about that. The Date Night Rewards Club is the card. We also have some other date night blogs in terms of stay-at-home date nights, free date nights, the generic date nights, and then we're starting to work on some more unique ones. So, and Wendy, isn't it you that's working on the that you're going to be doing the one for parents with special needs? Or I remember somebody else.
Yeah, it is. Do you want me to put am I starting a completely different blog for
Yeah,
Houston?
it'll be a totally different blog.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I just didn't know if I was supposed to piggyback on the Great Dates Houston blog, or if you wanted me to start in my own blog because you had mentioned to do two, like one for the Houston area and then one more of a generic for.
Right.
We could incorporate more how couples can strengthen their marriage with children when they have children with special needs.
And that's what we can do is we can create a tab on the Houston blog for couples with unique circumstances. So another unique circumstance that we may possibly be doing is empty nest couples. And then there's also military couples, and there's couples who are dealing with infertility issues. So we can kind of niche some of these dates so that they are a little bit more engaging and pertaining to the unique circumstances that some couples have. But another one too.
Yeah. Do you want me to create a tab on or just do a completely separate blog that you can kind of look over for now?
Yeah, for right now we'll do that, and you'll just log into the same one. You'll just create a new blog on the same account that we're using.
Okay, and where is that? Did you send us the information on that?
So what I'm doing is, after you send me like 2 or 3 examples so that I know that you've really caught the vision, then I send you the login information.
Perfect.
And so just remind me, I'll send you the login information just so that you can start creating that blog for the dates for parents with special needs.
Okay.
And then another one too is if you have a special passion or special interest in date nights for remarried couples, because that's a huge one. I mean, there's a huge population, and that there are some. Well, the tools are common, so it's kind of like duct tape and a hammer. You can use duct tape and a hammer in a lot of different circumstances, but the circumstances are sometimes unique, but the tools to deal with the problems are the same. And so for the couples who are dealing with the remarried challenges, it would be great to put together some dates for them. And then, do you have a particular format in mind when designing our Houston dates? And so that's something that we are. So with the first group of interns, what I wanted them to do is to create a whole bunch of different formats and a whole bunch of different ideas, so that the next stage is now we're going to select from all of these different, and we're going to put together kind of the best. And then what we'll do is we'll have 1 or 2 of the interns go back in and reformat the blogs that have already been posted, those posts, so that eventually it's all going to look uniform. And so that's still a work in progress, and I'm going to need some help. So if anybody wants to volunteer to take on that project because I think, Wendy, you were the one who suggested that maybe we kind of do a little vote on some of the different potential formats, which I think is a great idea. So if somebody wants to tackle that project of putting together some of the different, in terms of font, in terms of color, in terms of images, in terms of style, and then what we'll do is we'll just vote on it and come up with kind of the best format to try to keep it as generic and as uniform as possible. Please describe in detail how to track our hours and to get them signed off. And so if you don't already have just the generic time log form, I can go ahead and send you it. It's the one that the BYU Idaho interns have used forever. And so if you don't have that, I have a blank copy. I would be happy to sign it to you. And as far as when to turn it in to me, for you guys, I believe it's at the end of the semester is when you need to turn them in. For me, I'm super flexible. So some interns like to send it in once a week, and then I sign it and I send it back as a PDF. Other interns like to wait a month. I've had a couple who've waited an entire semester, and then I just sign a whole bunch. It probably would be better to, at the maximum, send them in once a month. Ideally once a week, but I'm also okay if you just send it in once a month. And then I'll just sign 4 of them. And then, have we been assigned a different zip code to be in charge of for the blog posts? So with the previous group of interns, what I did was I had us focus on northern Houston so that we could specifically start reaching out to the churches here in this northern Houston area. But we now have enough dates that I'm good with that. Now what we need to do is actually do more generic Houston so that as we start to roll it out to because the metropolitan Houston area is like the 4th or 5th largest in the United States. I think it's 5 to 7 million people. There's a ton of people down here. In fact, for U-Haul says that they send more trucks to the Houston area than to any other area. So it's just absolutely exploding in growth. And what would be nice now is to kind of spread the dates so that when somebody is in South Houston, when they type in a zip code near them, something will pop up. So go ahead and start. We won't assign you to a specific zip code now. And then can you briefly cover copyright laws for the blog posts? And so when it comes to copyright, absolutely firmly believe in copyright. So when it comes to the images, I know that there are a ton of really great images on other people's websites. Unless it is an image that you're pulling from a business that we are highlighting. So I personally don't think that the businesses are going to be upset at all if they see their image on our website that says, hey, take your date night money and go to this business and spend your money there. Because I think those images it helps the person who's thinking about what are we going to do tonight to be able to see those images, and I don't think we're going to have a problem at all with that. But as far as other images that you find on other blogs, yeah, for sure don't copy those. And we really do have a lot of images in the folder that I've purchased. So it's royalty-free stock photo images, so you can look in that for images. And if you don't find anything there, another free resource, and there's actually a lot of free resources that are out there that so Flickr, some of those, just make sure that the copyright is one that it can be used on the web. And then the other one that I use a lot is freedigitalphotos.net. And with that, all you need to do is just give credit to freedigitalphotos.net and then also to the person who produced it. So those are places that you can get images. And then another one too, in terms of what we don't want to do is just, because there's also lots of great date ideas that other people have come up with, you can't just copy that and paste it into our website. And at the same time, we also don't want to create a lot of links where we're sending people away from our website either. So what you can do is you can go to the other ones, and they can be kind of a catalyst for you to think, hey, that would be a great idea. Let me find a local Houston business or a local Houston, some way that they can do it locally here in Houston, and then you change up the date idea, and then you can post it on our website just fine. But copy and pasting is not okay. And then, so here are some of the questions from Wendy. How do people learn about the blog? So right now, we have it, until we have it super polished, we're not going to do a full rollout. We're doing the soft rollout with the churches. So that's actually just barely started. But eventually, yeah, we'll be doing the Google advertising, because the 2-for-1 coupon cards, once we start selling those, a small portion of it is going to be set aside for advertising. So yes, there'll be word of mouth, there'll be the Google AdWords, there'll be the Facebook ads. There'll be a multi-pronged approach of getting people to come, because like I sent out in that other email, if you build it, they will come, only works in Hollywood. Is there a way for couples to give feedback or testimonials on some of the ideas presented and tested without having to comment on the specific blog post? And so the easiest way is actually to comment on the specific blog post, and they can even do it anonymously. But what we could also do too is we could include the Gmail. So the Gmail account that is associated with the blogs is something like Date Night Rewards, or anyways, we can use that, because as we log in to work on the blog, then we can be checking that Gmail account to pick up comments and stuff that people can add. What enables a person to be able to contribute to the blog? So I kind of covered that. Basically, as soon as you send me 3 blog posts and we're good, as far as you've caught the vision and heading in the right direction, then I kind of turn over the keys to the car and say, go forth and do good things. And so at that point, that's when I send you the blog login information. And are there plans to roll out similar websites in various areas? Absolutely. So as soon as we get that template, so that it becomes easy to just drag and drop, and then we'll be rolling it out everywhere. So now we can open it up for other questions. Anybody else have questions?
I had a question on like the hours. So are we counting hours like we're just in front of the computer doing research, writing blog post, or am I counting hours when I'm like thinking in the car when I'm picking up kids of processing like date ideas in my head? So I just want to just because obviously I want to officially count the hours that really count for the internship. So just if you could clarify that.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in double dipping. And so, for example, some of the interns, they've come to me and said, hey, I'm doing some marriage education, we're developing a marriage education presentation for another one of my classes. Can I count those hours? And as long as it's something that we can use somehow with the projects that we're working on, absolutely, great. And so driving in the car and you're thinking about it, absolutely that should count, because ultimately that's going to benefit us. And,
so I had put out, I'm part of a Facebook group. My son has cerebral palsy, and so I'm part of a special needs Facebook group, and I had talked to you about putting out there to see if people would be willing to, as I create a survey, and kind of get some input on the struggles that they face as couples with children with special needs. And I got a Facebook message from Elisa Riska, who is the director of the Liahona Project, Faith and Direction, and she wants to somehow involve, their involvement in helping, on their site, helping parents kind of connect in with all of this. So I kind of wanted your
Beautiful.
feedback. Should I pursue that, or should because she says they have like a community survey where she would want the people that follow her site, this project, to be able to come in and somehow benefit from the research that I'm going to do and helping parents kind of connect in the marriage realm of children with special needs.
Yeah, I'm a big time believer in collaborations. And so there's a book called Love is the Killer App, and it really is true that, so the way that I look at what I do is it's a social enterprise organization. So the way that a social enterprise organization is set up is you have two bottom lines. Your first bottom line is how much of a positive social impact are you able to generate, and the second bottom line is how much revenue can you generate in order to plow back into increasing your first bottom line. And so if anybody has any dreams or visions of getting into this field and getting rich, then you're in the wrong major, transfer over to business or something. So the way that I look at it is all the money that we'll generate after I keep the roof over our heads and clothes on our back and food on the table, I just plow back into it. And so by involving other people in collaborations, it makes the work go so much faster and so much better. And just with her, help her to understand that very much this is a beta product, and we'll be doing beta testing, and it'd be wonderful if they help to give input, etc. So yes, absolutely love collaboration.
Okay, and one last question. I have an opportunity to help with the World Congress of Families that's happening in Salt Lake City in the fall, and helping prepare that. Do those hours count, or is that completely independent?
And so I'm really liberal when it comes up to it. So as long as you can come up with some sort of rationalization of how what you're working on is going to benefit the projects that we're working on and helping to strengthen marriages, then I'm all for it. Okay. So for example, like Emily had a question of, hey, when I'm reading the general conference talks, does that count? And my thought is, as long as you're reading general conference talks and looking for concepts that you can because we have the date night connection component, and I'm still not totally sold on that idea, that name, date night connection, but the general concept is how do we kick it up a notch to teaching them correct principles and correct insights. And so what we try to pull from are research-based, but for me personally, I believe that the stuff that's said in general conference is better than research-based. So if there's a principle that's taught in general conference from the talks, so as you're reading through the general conference talks and you're looking for how can I use what I learned in there to teach this connection principle of helping the couple to grow closer together, then hey, count the conference talks that you're reading.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So any other questions? Anybody else?
Can I make a note, Eric?
Yeah.
So Vicky, another intern that's doing this semester, is taking over the social media. So we do have our Facebook page, and I just wanted to encourage everyone to go like it if you can.
For sure.
And there's also the Facebook group page for the interns. So if you have any questions, want brainstorming, it's a good place to do that if you saw the invitation I sent you. That's all.
Great. So did I really cover everything?
I have a question.
Yep.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Wendy.
I was just gonna. How many people are working? I mean, this semester, with this Great Day Houston thing. I mean, how many of us are there? Because I know I have a friend who's doing something totally different under the Dibbles, and so Lisa Jackson. So I just want. I mean, know exactly when we're sending the emails that you have sent to us. You've listed everyone. That's who we could contact should we have questions.
Yeah. So there's 12 of us. There's 12 of us that's working on the date night / the grants / other stuff that's coming up, and then there's also and then I'm also the internship coordinator for the Dibble Institute, and so I've got 5 interns over there, and Lisa's one of them. And then as far as other opportunities that you guys are going to have, because while right now there's not the revenue to pay you an hourly wage, there is the revenue to there's commission revenue. There's commission possibilities, and so for example, what you guys are doing with the churches, the ARPs have sold over 100,000 copies of their Great Dates book, and then they also sell the DVD. So anything that you guys end up as you're reaching out to the churches that results in a sale, then you're going to get a commission on that up to a year. And so some of these churches, if they end up inviting the ARPs in, and the ARPs charge, I think, something like $4,000 or $5,000 to come in and do a Marriage Alive seminar, if you were the person who contacted the church first, then that's going to be a nice little check that you're going to get, because after expenses, you'll get 10% of what we get. And so
with all these different projects, I mean, you say 10% of your time focused here, how do we really, so really 10% would be only spending 16 hours to work with the special needs blog itself, and setting that. So I just want to make sure that I'm utilizing, I'm being utilized how you need me in the best possible.
So specifically, on some of your 10% projects, what I will say to you is, for example, for you, Wendy, that 10% project that you're working on is one that I'm way super interested in and I want to have happen. And so your 10% just got bumped up to about 90%.
Okay, all right. So I just want to, because, I can email churches, and, I can do that as well, but it's going to take some background for me to get in contact with other parents and share and talk and discuss with them their ideas of what is important to them before I start really rolling out these blog posts. I just want to make sure that I have enough research-based information before I just start writing these blog posts. And that's why I haven't sent you anything yet, because I'm working on the survey and trying to get some feedback from, my son attends a special needs preschool, and so, I'm talking to those parents. So I'm really just putting myself out there and wanting to share the blog with them in addition, so that they can pull into this as well, because I have a lot of resources with connections with all of his services that he's involved in to really get this out there.
Yep. Yeah, and so for the rest of you, you may end up start working, because I want everyone to have the flexibility to spend 10% of their internship working on something that they passionately believe in that helps to strengthen marriages. And then as you share that with me, like Wendy did, then we're going to make a change, a course correction. And so that's the other thing that I would ask of everyone is this internship is super flexible. So remember that too. Don't get too rigid in terms of, oh, I'm only supposed to be working on this, because I'll probably be sending you a lot of different assignments. And so while I give you a lot of flexibility, I also hope that you're going to be flexible with me as well. But going back to the 10% project, I want you all to be able to work at least 10% of your time on something that you passionately believe in, that you know is going to help strengthen marriages. And as long as it's about strengthening marriages, then great, wonderful, count it as your internship time. Also, you don't necessarily have to pick a 10% project. If there's something that we're working on that you're super passionate about, then spend your time on that. And on some of your internship projects, like Wendy's, I'm going to tell you, you know what, I want you to take that way beyond 10% because we need to make that happen. And so, yeah. And then who else had a question?
There's a couple questions in the group chat to the side, Aaron.
Yeah, and this is my second time doing Google Plus, and all that I see are pictures down at the bottom. So how do I enable something to the side?
I can just read them.
Hey, something just popped up.
Oh, you got it?
So there's a bunch of icons on the left. Now what do I push on? Is it chat?
I think so.
Oh, here we go. All right.
Okay.
Well, maybe I'll start reading through these. I'll go backwards. So Susan says, what happens when someone responds positively to our emails to the church? Do we do anything more? So yeah, when that happens, please send me the email, and then I'll respond and I'll CC you on it, because eventually I want you to take over the responses. But here initially, let's just have me do it, and then you'll learn as you go along. And then, same question. So we just tell what hours we've done and then signed off. Okay, I think we took care of that. How do I make sure I'm not duplicating the work that somebody else is doing? So that comes from Laura. And so Laura, I sent out another reminder about the Google Doc that we've done as far as how to keep track of the churches. And so if you go on to that, and what you can do is you can actually do Command F. Command F is my friend. And so to do Command F, which is to find, you would just simply copy and paste like the name of the church into it, and then it would search through the Google Doc, because it's going to get pretty large, and you'll be able to tell if somebody else has already contacted that church. The other thing that you can do too, the thing that I would do is I would actually search by zip code first. So I would find there's a bunch of different resources that help you to find churches and their contact information, and you can search by zip code. So what I personally would do is I'd pull up that map that I sent you of Houston, find a zip code that you want to look for the churches on, and I sent you out some suggestions of initial zip codes. But if somebody's not working on that zip code, start working on churches in that zip code. If somebody's working on all of the zip codes of the initial ones that I sent out, then just start searching for other zip codes in other parts. But for right now, try to stay more northern Houston, because that's where I want to try to focus first on getting the 2-for-1 coupon cards rolled out. Okay. So Susan clarified and told me, because Susan also lives here in the Houston area, and she clarified that there's over 6 million of us in this Houston metropolitan area. And let's see. Okay, did that answer everybody's questions in the chat box?
I have a question. That's not chat box. Like over the next 3 months, over the semester, how many blog posts should we come up with, like on average? Is there a certain amount that you want from us?
So I would say do your best. And I know that because the thing is that some yeah, you could, I don't want to say do 30 blog posts or 50 blog posts and have you just crank out a whole bunch. Really, it's about, I'd rather have quality over quantity. I will tell you that I was a little disappointed there's only been one intern that and Emily's on the call. It's not Emily. I probably shouldn't say this. I'll say it anyway. In all my years of working with BYU Idaho interns, I've only been disappointed with one intern, and it was in the last semester, and somehow she thought that just doing, I think it was a total of 5 or 6, was good enough. And so I just, yeah. So don't go for 5 or 6.
Okay.
Do more than 5 or 6.
Okay.
But yeah, all the rest of the BYU Idaho interns that I've worked with have just been absolutely phenomenal.
Okay. Thank you.
So quality over quantity.
Okay.
As long as it's more than 5 or 6. But if you did 5 or 6 that absolutely just blew my socks off, and I could tell that you actually spent 160 hours putting together 5 or 6 blog posts, then knock me out. You can be the first.
See, that has me a little nervous because I may not get 5 or 6 with all my research.
Because you're right, and that's a great example of how the build up. So yes, yours is a completely different situation.
But I guarantee you, I'll have more than 5 or 6. Once I get all that research-based information going, then they're going to be coming. So.
And Dave and Claudia Arp, they're going to be giving a presentation to those counselors. I think it's the first or second week in May. So if you could have two done for them to share, that'd be phenomenal. And then that's the other thing too, is as you guys work on anything that is associated with Marriage Alive International, then you're going to be able to put on your Vita, on your resume, that you've done internships for the National Healthy Marriage Institute and also for Marriage Alive International. So so there are definitely some perks as far as your resume goes to working on some of the 10 Great Dates stuff that I'll have to do. And then that was the other thing that I was going to point out. If you want to do more outreach, if you want to possibly generate more revenue, then have a number of opportunities with Marriage Alive International as far as reaching out to the military. And these are all places that they've sold in before. It's just we need to remind some of the military bases about the 10 Great Dates materials. So they have 10 Great Dates before I Say I Do. They have 10 Great Dates just for the regular couples. They have 10 Great Dates for empty nesters. And they have DVDs that go with all of them. And then they also have a new program called Connections. So if you make the contact and if you help sell anything to military, to churches, those have been the two large, or to some of the other Healthy Marriage grantees, then that's a way that you can earn a 10% commission off of that revenue. So if you're interested in doing more of that, that's helping to strengthen marriages, so we can be flexible with your internship and allow you to spend more time on doing outreach. Because it really doesn't do us any good to develop all these products if nobody's using them. So other questions? Wendy pointed out that lots of them are coming from California. It's true. Oh, and then Susan asked, can I do my area in Katy? Absolutely, Susan. Let's have you focus on the Katy area because you know Katy. So Katy is just outside of Houston. It's still part of the metro area. Then other questions?
I have a question about the churches.
Uh-huh.
Okay, the way I was doing it was I was finding the churches, and I went into that MAI office email address, and so I used that address, not my email.
Right.
Okay, and then what about for the churches that don't have websites with emails and we have to call them personally and talk to them about it?
Yeah, what I would say is right now let's just do the low-hanging fruit. Yeah, we'll skip those eventually, because to do phone calls, I would want to pay you to do phone calls.
Okay.
But to do emails, then I think that's fine as an intern activity. But to bump you up to the level where you're having to make phone calls, I'd want to pay you, and the revenue's not there yet. Hopefully it'll be here soon. I mean, there's a possibility we could pull this thing off in the next couple months of starting to sell the 2-for-1 cards. And if we do, then life will be wonderful for you guys and for me.
So when we're mailing this out and they're all info at such and such church, do you really think that's going to get to the right person? Or should it be more the pastor, the bishop?
Yeah, you can spend maybe like an extra 2 minutes. So spend an extra 2 minutes on the church's website. If you can find what's referred to as marriage ministry or the marriage pastor,
right,
family life minister.
And I did that to a lot of them.
Yeah, then that's ideal. But don't spend more than a minute or two, because right now we're just going for low-hanging fruit.
Okay.
And then also very much on it, keep track of your time, because don't spend more than 10%. Because while it's important to be reaching out and I mean, unless you're passionate about wanting to help sell the 2-for-1 cards, then feel free to spend as much time as you want. But otherwise, it's also a lot of fun to develop the date ideas. So, other questions?
So Emily, you did this internship last semester? Okay, so you're just kind of the helper for all of us interns this semester, so we can email you with questions to not have to keep bombarding Brother Larson.
Well, maybe for another week, because Emily's kind of she has some hours that spilled over.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't want to take advantage of Emily.
All right, that sounds good.
If you do want to use that Facebook group page, all of you will be on there, and you can hopefully answer all your own questions.
Fantastic, perfect.
And don't ever hesitate about sending me questions, because it's always better to ask questions. I'm very happy to. And if I never respond within 24 hours, unless it's over a Sunday, please nudge me again, because. And then that also, in terms of the flexibility, what's that?
I said I've noticed I've gotten emails at 3 in the morning, so.
Well, that's because I wake up at 4:30.
Okay.
So maybe 3 o'clock in the morning your time. It's only 4:30 my time. But in terms of flexibility, because I know especially with this spring internship that you guys are swamped with other stuff, just know that there is the flexibility, like what we did with Emily and BYU Idaho. I think they were really good with working with you, Emily, as well as sometimes they know that you need to spill into the next semester. And if that happens, no worries on my part. I think somebody else had a question?
I was just going to ask, Emily, you said there was a Facebook group. Is it specifically for this internship, or you mean like all BYU Idaho internships?
I made it specifically for this internship. It's called NHMI Intern Group. And I sent an email invitation to everyone that Aaron had in one of the intern emails from the page. So if you haven't gotten that from me, let me know and I'll try to re-invite you. Because it is a private group, so no one else is like snooping in.
Any other questions? So if anybody does have any other questions, just feel free, like I said, send me the email. I'll get back to you within 24 hours. Otherwise, it got lost in my account, so send me a nudge. Unless it's Sunday. If you send something Saturday night, you're probably not going to get a response till Monday morning.
I just want to thank you, community. I mean, being a mom of 5 kids, this internship was always a what am I going to do, especially having a son with special needs. So, from my perspective, this is a great opportunity to be able to help you out and also fulfill the need for an internship. So thank you for your time and the opportunity. Yeah. It's really helpful for me, and I look forward to being able to do some research and talk to other parents and make some connections to hopefully push forward the agenda of strengthening marriages.
Yeah, and it really is. I mean, the potential that this has to do good is just, and that's the other thing about me too is I decided a long time ago, especially being self-employed, a social entrepreneur, that it's very easy to get totally, completely sucked into everything that needs to be done. So I really do try to limit myself to about 40 hours a week. Because I don't want to strengthen other people's marriages and families at the expense of my own. And so having you guys really helps to expand how much I'm able to accomplish by gazillion fold as far as to pulling it off and pulling all this together. Now I will tell you, over the next 2 months though, that 40 hours is going to change, because when it's grant writing season, unfortunately things get crazy nuts. But for the rest of the time I try to keep myself to 40 hours.
Yeah, and real quick, I just wanted to mention that when I posted that information about kind of what this program is all about on Facebook on that special needs page, I did have one particular woman who said, well, my husband couldn't handle it, so he left me. So just the question I have for you is because she then initially said, she sent me a message saying, I would love to share with you more about my story so that we can give the opposite perspective for those parents and support now the single parents of special needs kids. And so maybe I can talk with you more about this one-on-one, but I think that somehow that needs to be addressed. I know that it is to strengthen marriage, but I don't want to forget those people who lose their marriage to the stress of special needs kids.
Right, and the healing that needs to take place.
Correct.
And a lot of the tools are the same tools, and so as far as for the internship, there are resources that are out there. So divorce support groups and divorce recovery. And as much as I'd like to be everything to everyone,
right.
The reality is that there's just not enough time. And so there are resources that I'd point her towards. And the sad reality is that the projected divorce rate for couples with special needs kids is like in the 70% range, and which is also one of the reasons why I really want to reach out to them, because if we can equip them with these skills and tools and insights, we can lower that. And while I know that divorce is necessary in some situations, the reality is that the vast majority of the time, with just the right tools and the right insights, and with both people who are willing, then you can turn a horrific situation into an absolute amazing relationship.
Yeah, my son is actually adopted, so when we adopted him, we didn't have any idea that we would be encountering, his special needs, but it never would have changed the situation at all. So. Right.
I mean, they can be a huge blessing. You got to use the right tools.
Right. But again, I think we're given the kind of the extended version of really what it's all about. So I, would like to, without being really churchy, send that out to the world about the importance of just focusing on the relationship. Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
And then actually that does bring up something else too, and that is, as much as possible, we do want to try to keep it secular, because we don't want to turn this into like a LDS resource. There's lots of great LDS resources, and so the way that I look at it is we can translate gospel principles, but if it becomes explicitly LDS or explicitly Christian, unfortunately the sad reality is that a lot of people, it'll turn off a lot of people, and they will automatically discount and not even take advantage of the resource and the tools that we're developing because of the, let's call for the discrimination, the prejudice. And so we do want to try to keep everything as secular as possible, and so just translate it. So think of yourself as, yep, you know a lot of truth, just translate it in a way that it's not going to, I don't want to call it offend, but they literally do. They get offended when they think that you're teaching LDS principles. So
I can say something here, Aaron.
Uh-huh.
I just finished my family advocacy class, and the main principle that they teach you in that class is to be bold but not overbearing, and that if you're in the public square, secular ideas are more widely accepted. So if you want to discuss things with others that are atheist or whatever, you have to stay on the secular plane.
Yep. And you're going to find it's amazing how the researchers keep finding that the gospel of Jesus Christ is true. And so if there's a principle that you want to teach, so for example about the importance of respect, President Hinckley talked about it, how it's absolutely crucial, then you're going to find that John Gottman has done a lot of research on how important respect is. And so you end up quoting John Gottman instead of President Hinckley, but it still gets across the same truth. But it's also okay too if there's just a great quote from Gordon Hinckley, then you can just leave it at that. You don't have to say President Gordon B. Hinckley of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So, and then I'm looking at. So Laura said, as an empty nester, I'm really interested in focusing on that segment. I would absolutely love, Laura, if you want to focus on that, then I would absolutely love you to take it from a 10% to like a 90%, because that's one of the empty nest population, at least in the United States, is absolutely exploding with all the baby boomers, and that's one of the last. So the second to the last divorce spike is at empty nest. It's the largest one, and then the last divorce spike is after retirement. And so I would absolutely love for you to focus on empty nest dates.
So Aaron, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So the things that I've been thinking about with focusing on empty nesters, because I am one, is that in taking the marriage class, my husband and I used Gottman's book in that process, and I love Gottman. So is that a practical thing? Is to take some of his exercises and work it into making it, a series of dates where you focus on, your love maps or whatever.
Exactly.
That's kind of what I was thinking, and I am excited about that. I really, because I love Gottman.
Yep, and then just make sure that in the blog post that you always encourage people to purchase the 7 Principles book. And so I figure John is not going to be upset with me. And actually, that's one of the special things that I got to do over the years is interact with John on a number of occasions with the conferences that I worked at. A great guy, phenomenal material, and as long as we are not copying and pasting, but instead referencing back and sending people back to purchase his book, he's going to be thrilled.
Okay, great.
And then Susan also talked about empty nest, and so I'd love for the two of you guys to work together on that. That would be tremendous. And I think that covered everything in the chat. And I think the official time is now at about an hour. So unless there's anything else, and if there is, just send me individual emails. And so thank you very much, Emily, for organizing this. And once again, thank you everyone for taking the time to work on this project for your internship. So.
Aaron, I'm just going to turn off the live broadcast and then we can wrap up.